It's no fault of Elvis. He loved the song.
Dolly Parton has built a career spanning over 60 years in country music, becoming one of the most beloved icons in the entertainment industry. Known for her warm personality, generous spirit, and trademark smile, she has managed to navigate the competitive world of show business with remarkable grace. However, even someone as diplomatic as Dolly has experienced complicated professional relationships throughout her long career. Recently, she has opened up about 6 musical relationships that tested her famous patience and positivity in ways the public rarely saw. The relationship between Dolly Parton and Winona Judd presents an interesting study in contrast. On the surface, these two women should have been natural friends and allies. Both came from poor Appalachian backgrounds and rose to become powerful vocalists with distinctive, unmistakable styles. Both achieved mainstream country success while maintaining their authentic roots. Both built careers by staying true to themselves in an industry that often preferred female stars to be more conventional and compliant. Yet despite these similarities, their relationship has been characterized by what people in the industry describe as respectful distance rather than genuine friendship. Dolly has acknowledged that while she admires Winona's remarkable talent and powerful voice, they are simply different types of people. Dolly has always believed in bringing positive energy and lighting up any room she enters, while Winona carries a different kind of energy that is neither better nor worse, just fundamentally different. During the 1990s, when both women were at the peak of their commercial success and frequently appeared together at awards shows, insiders reported that their interactions were marked by cool professionalism rather than warmth. Dolly reportedly told her band members that some singers drain the energy from a room while she prefers to light it up. This comment, though never intended for public consumption, captures the essential difference in how they approach both performance and personal interactions. People who worked with both women noticed these contrasting styles regularly. Dolly would arrive like a burst of positive energy, greeting every stagehand by name, making jokes and making everyone feel special and valued. Winona, on the other hand, was more internal and focused, sometimes mistaken for being aloof when she was really just dealing with her own pressures and concentrating on her work. Their differences extended beyond personality to their artistic choices as well. While Dolly embraced rhinestones, glitter, and unabashed femininity in her image, Winona projected a more serious, sometimes brooding artistic persona. Their vocal approaches represented opposite ends of the country music spectrum, with Dolly's crisp, clear soprano contrasting with Winona's bluesy, emotional belt. During Winona's difficult period following her mother, Naomi's retirement, and her complicated relationship with her sister Ashley, Dolly maintained a noticeable distance. Unlike her usual role as an industry mother figure who offers support and guidance, she seemed to recognize that her sunshine approach might not mesh well with Winona's darker emotional journey. Dolly later admitted that she didn't understand Winona's darkness for a long time. While Dolly had faced her own struggles, she always believed in pushing through difficulties with a smile. It took her years to respect that different people need to process their pain differently, and that both approaches could be equally valid. Despite these differences, both women have expressed professional respect for each other over the years. Winona has covered Dolly's songs in concert, and Dolly has consistently praised Winona's vocal abilities. Their relationship represents something more nuanced than simple friendship or rivalry. The relationship between Dolly Parton and Reba McEntire has been defined by an unspoken competition that both women maintained with remarkable grace for decades. While country music journalists and fans debated who deserved the title of true queen of country music, the two women at the center maintained such a cordial and mutually supportive public relationship that many assumed no real competition existed between them. However, Dolly has recently begun to acknowledge that the truth is considerably more complex. In a surprisingly candid interview, Dolly revealed that she and Reba have always had a special understanding. They came up in different eras but faced the same battles and always respected each other's territory. They smiled on stage together, but both understood what was at stake in their careers. This rare acknowledgement of their unspoken rivalry confirmed what industry insiders had long suspected. Beneath the gracious public comments and mutual support existed a keenly felt professional competition. Their parallel careers created natural comparison points that were hard to ignore. Both women transformed themselves from rural girls with distinctive voices into multimedia empires spanning music, film, television, and business ventures. Both cultivated immediately recognizable public personas that set them apart. Both demonstrated extraordinary business intelligence in an industry that often underestimated women's capabilities. Former television executives who worked with both women noted that they were competing for the same opportunities without ever admitting it openly. During the 1990s, there were only so many country variety show concepts that networks would approve, only so many prestigious performance slots, only so many opportunities for cosmetic and clothing lines. Both women were pioneering figures in entertainment business, but the available opportunities were limited. The competition extended to tour venues, award nominations, and public perception. While Dolly crafted her image around approachability and down-home wisdom, Reba positioned herself as country music's sophisticated leading lady. Their contrasting approaches meant they rarely faced direct comparison, but behind the scenes, the scorekeeping was very real. People close to both women's teams reported that they would count who received more standing ovations at award shows, who got better placement in performance lineups, and whose tours generated more revenue. Both women were too professional to acknowledge this competition publicly, but everyone around them was aware of the unspoken scoreboard. They performed together, presented awards to each other, and unfailingly praised one another in interviews, demonstrating a masterclass in navigating professional rivalry with dignity and grace. Dolly has reflected that she admires how Reba built her career, just as she hopes Reba respects how she built her own. They have been climbing the same mountain from different paths, and sometimes your biggest competitor can also be your greatest motivation. How? The competition seems to have softened in recent years as both women have ascended to legend status with their places in country music history firmly secure. They have shared more stages and even joked about their parallel journeys. Dolly insists they have never had a crossword between them, which industry observers believe is literally true. Their competition was too sophisticated and professional for direct confrontation. Instead, it played out in subtle career moves, strategic timing of album releases, and careful maintenance of their distinct public persona. Music historians observe that their rivalry may represent the most gracefully managed competition in entertainment history, turning what could have been portrayed as a negative rivalry into a demonstration of professional respect between two powerful women. Few relationships in Dolly Parton's life bridge the personal and professional worlds as completely as her connection with Miley Cyrus. As godmother to Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter, Dolly has watched Miley's evolution from child star to controversial pop performer with the complicated emotions of both a family member and an entertainment industry veteran. Dolly has frequently stated that she loves Miley like her own child. But recently she has been more honest about the challenges their relationship faced during Miley's dramatic transformation from Disney sweetheart to boundary-pushing performer. Dolly has confided that while she never judged Miley's soul, she did judge some of her choices during that controversial period. The relationship between these two cultural icons has always been defined by genuine affection. Miley grew up idolizing Dolly, not just as a family connection but as an artistic blueprint for blending country roots with mainstream pop appeal. For her part, Dolly saw in Miley echoes of her own boundary-pushing youth and ambitious drive. This harmonious dynamic was tested during Miley's dramatic reinvention following her Hannah Montana year. Her provocative performances, controversial music videos, and public embrace of wild behavior represented everything Dolly had carefully avoided in her own image management, despite Dolly's own quietly progressive values. Watching Miley during those years was difficult for Dolly. She understood Miley's need to break free from the Disney image, but worried that her goddaughter was doing damage that would be hard to repair. Dolly even called Miley reckless once, probably the harshest thing she has ever said about someone she loves. What makes this relationship particularly complex is that Dolly herself had been a trailblazer in using sexuality in outrageous fashion as part of her public persona. The key difference was Dolly's unerring instinct for knowing exactly how far to push boundaries without alienating her core audience. Satsela, industry executives noted that Dolly was concerned about Miley making powerful enemies in the industry at such a young age. Dolly had built her career on never burning bridges, and she worried that Miley was destroying relationships before she had even fully established them. Their temporary estrangement during this period, marked by fewer public appearances together, and notably less mention of each other in interviews, spoke volumes about the tension between them. Yet unlike many celebrity relationships that fracture permanently, theirs evolved into something more mature as Miley grew and recalibrated her approach to her career. The reconciliation began gradually, with Miley returning to her country roots on certain projects and speaking with newfound appreciation for the music industry wisdom Dolly had tried to share. For her part, Dolly began to publicly acknowledge that Miley had to find her own path, even if it diverged from the one she would have recommended. Their Grammy performance together in 2019, featuring a duet of Jolene, symbolically marked the healing of their relationship, with both women visibly emotional during the performance. Since then, they have returned to frequently expressing mutual admiration, though now with the depth that comes from having weathered genuine conflict. Dolly has revealed that they are more honest with each other now. Miley knows that Dolly will always love her, but won't always approve of her choices, and Dolly knows that Miley has to live her own truth. This evolution makes their relationship perhaps the most authentically familial of Dolly's professional connections, complete with the disagreements, disappointments, and ultimate reconciliations that characterize real family bonds. For over 4 decades, the musical partnership between Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers produced some of country music's most beloved duets. Their onstage chemistry and apparent mutual adoration created an image of perfect harmony that delighted fans worldwide. But as Dolly has recently begun to acknowledge, even this seemingly perfect collaboration experienced its share of creative tensions and personality clashes. Following Rogers' death, Dolly revealed that while they loved each other, they also drove each other crazy at times. Kenny didn't always listen to her input, and Dolly doesn't like being told what to do. But that friction sometimes created the spark that made their musical magic work. While their friendship was genuine and lasted until Rogers' death in 2020, their creative partnership had to navigate significant differences in artistic approach, business philosophy, and personal communication styles. Producers who worked with both artists explained that they were like oil and water in some ways. Kenny was methodical, precise, and perfectionistic, wanting everything planned out in advance. Dolly was intuitive, spontaneous, and trusted her instincts completely in the studio. These contrasting approaches led to occasional conflicts during recording sessions. Rogers, with his background in jazz and pop music, preferred structured arrangements and precise vocal techniques. Dolly, rooted in Appalachian musical traditions, often wanted to follow emotional impulses and improvise in the moment. Studio musicians recalled that Kenny would get frustrated when Dolly changed her phrasing on every take, while Dolly would get irritated when Kenny wanted to map everything out in advance. They both wanted control of the creative process, but in very different ways. Their business relationship added another layer of complexity to their partnership. While both were savvy entrepreneurs, they approached career decisions differently. Rogers built his brand on consistent, calculated risk management, while Dolly was more willing to take creative gambles that might alienate portions of her audience. This difference came to a head during their 1984 tour when disagreements over production elements, song selection, and even merchandise created backstage tensions that occasionally affected their performances. Several concerts found them noticeably distant on stage, with the effortless chemistry that defined their collaborations temporarily dimmed. Former tour directors revealed that there was a 2-week stretch where they communicated only through their managers. Kenny thought Dolly wasn't taking the business side seriously enough, while Dolly felt Kenny was sacrificing spontaneity and creative freedom for safety. Both were right from their own perspectives. Despite these periodic clashes, what distinguished their relationship was the fundamental respect and affection that allowed them to navigate disagreements without causing permanent damage. Unlike many musical partnerships that fracture irreparably over creative differences, Dolly and Kenny consistently found their way back to harmony. Dolly explained that they had a dynamic like siblings. They would fight, make up, forget why they were angry, and then repeat the cycle the next month. But they never doubted the love underneath all the disagreements. This balance between genuine friendship and professional friction produced one of music's most enduring partnerships, spanning decades and encompassing numerous projects beyond their famous duets. Their relationship demonstrates how creative tension, when balanced with mutual respect, can actually enhance rather than destroy a musical collaboration. Rogers himself acknowledged this dynamic shortly before his death, noting that he and Dolly disagreed about plenty of things, but they never disagreed about what mattered most: the music and their fans. Everything else was just noise they had to work through together. The trio albums uniting the voices of Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris are widely regarded as some of the greatest collaborative projects in country music history. The 1987 release and its 1999 sequel showcased three distinct vocal approaches blending into transcendent harmony. But while the musical chemistry was undeniable, the personal dynamics, particularly between Dolly and Linda, were far more complicated than fans ever realized. Dolly has acknowledged that while they made magic together musically, they weren't friends afterward. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from people who don't necessarily connect on other levels beyond their art. This revelation stunned many fans who had imagined the three women as close friends, united by their pioneering roles as women in a male-dominated industry. The reality involved significant personality differences and creative tensions that prevented the working relationship from evolving into genuine friendship. Dolly has confided that Linda had a coldness that she never quite got past. While acknowledging Linda's brilliant mind and extraordinary musicianship, Dolly noted there was always a distance between them. Dolly comes from a world where warmth and personal connection matter as much as talent, while Linda operated differently with clearer boundaries between her professional and personal worlds. This assessment touches on the fundamental contrast between their approaches to music and relationships. Dolly, raised in the communal traditions of Appalachian culture, brought an emotionally open, intuitive approach to both music and relationships. Ronstadt, trained in a more formal musical tradition with an intellectual approach to arrangement and interpretation, maintained stricter boundaries. Music historians explain that they represented opposite ends of the country music spectrum. Dolly was self-taught, instinctual, and rooted in traditional country, while Linda was technically trained, methodical in her approach, and drew from a broader musical palette. These differences created both brilliant creative tension and personal disconnection. The recording of the first trio album in 1987 brought these contrasts into sharp relief. While all three women were established stars, they approached the project with different priorities and working styles. Emmylou Harris often served as mediator between Dolly's spontaneous, emotion-driven approach and Linda's more calculated, precision-focused methodology. Dolly reportedly expressed frustration during this period about what she perceived as Linda's intellectual distance from the emotional core of country music traditions. This frustration reveals Dolly's preference for an approach to music making that prioritized emotional authenticity over technical perfection. For her part, Ronstadt has always maintained tremendous respect for Dolly's musical gifts while acknowledging their different approaches, noting that Dolly understands something fundamental about connecting with an audience that cannot be learned in any music school. Their contrasting approaches extended beyond music to business and image as well. While both were groundbreaking female artists who maintained control of their careers, Dolly embraced a carefully constructed public persona that balanced authenticity with theatrical presentation. And Ronstadt rejected such packaging, pursuing a more straightforward, less manufactured public image that sometimes limited her commercial appeal. Producers who worked with both artists suggested that Dolly sometimes found Linda's bluntness difficult, as Dolly navigates the world through charm and diplomacy, while Linda says exactly what she thinks, without filtering her words. These approaches don't naturally align. Despite these personal differences, both women maintained the professional respect that allowed them to create landmark recordings together. Their ability to set aside interpersonal disconnect in service of musical excellence speaks to their shared professionalism, even in the absence of personal warmth. The story of their complicated relationship offers an important reminder that great art doesn't always require great friendship. Sometimes creative magic happens precisely because of the tensions between contrasting approaches rather than in spite of them. Dolly has reflected that she will always value what they created together, but she learned that sometimes you can harmonize perfectly with someone's voice without ever quite harmonizing with their spirit. And that lesson has its own value. No relationship in Dolly Parton's career has been more transformative or more complicated than her 7-year partnership with Porter Wagoner. What began as a career-making opportunity for young Dolly eventually evolved into a contentious business relationship that would require legal intervention to fully dissolve. The journey between these points reveals important truths about power dynamics in country music and Dolly's evolution from student to powerhouse in her own right. Dolly has recently acknowledged in her most candid assessment, yet that Porter made her famous and then made her miserable. While she will always be grateful for the platform he gave her, gratitude doesn't mean she had to accept being controlled. When 21-year-old Dolly joined the Porter Wagoner Show in 1967 as the replacement for longtime female vocalist Norma Jean, she entered a professional relationship with clearly defined power dynamics. Wagoner was already an established star with his own television show and successful recording career. Dolly was a promising songwriter with limited commercial success as a solo artist. The initial arrangement seemed beneficial to both parties. Wagoner gained a tremendously talented singer and songwriter for his show, while Dolly received national television exposure that would have otherwise taken years to achieve. Their duets quickly became fan favorites, and Dolly's solo segments introduced her to a nationwide audience. But beneath this mutually advantageous surface lay the seeds of future conflict. Wagoner, known as a notoriously controlling figure in his business dealings, expected not just professional loyalty but artistic deference from his new discovery. Dolly has revealed that Porter wanted to dictate everything about her career. Her songs, her arrangements, her image, even the musicians in her band. Early on, she needed his guidance and accepted this control. But as she grew as an artist, that control became increasingly suffocating and restrictive. The tension escalated as Dolly's solo recordings began to outperform their duets. Her self-penned songs like Jolene and I Will Always Love You demonstrated songwriting abilities that transcended the traditional country format, suggesting potential for a crossover career that would eclipse Wagoner's more traditional country audience. Dolly has reflected that Porter couldn't accept that her wings were getting too big for the nest he had built. He had been both mentor and manager, and those roles got confused with ownership in his mind. He began to believe he owned not just their professional partnership, but her future career as well. The breaking point came in 1974 when Dolly decided to leave Wagoner's show to expand her solo career. What might have been an amicable professional separation instead sparked a bitter falling out. Wagoner initially refused to release her from contractual obligations, then demanded ownership percentages of her publishing and recording catalogs as compensation for his role in developing her career. Dolly has explained that she wrote I Will Always Love You as a peace offering, literally as a way to say goodbye to Porter in the gentlest way possible. She played it for him, hoping it would soften his heart about letting her go. He cried while listening, then immediately asked for the publishing rights to the song. This request, which Dolly firmly refused, illustrated the fundamental disconnect in how each viewed their partnership. Wagoner saw himself as the architect of Dolly's success, entitled to ongoing financial benefits from her career. Dolly recognized his important role in her development, but maintained that her talents and her future belonged to herself alone. The dissolution of their professional relationship eventually required legal intervention, with Dolly paying a significant settlement to extract herself completely from Waggoner's business interests. This financial cost represented the concrete price of her creative and professional freedom. Dolly stated years later that it was worth every penny because you cannot put a price tag on owning yourself. What makes this relationship particularly significant in Dolly's career is how it shaped her subsequent approach to business throughout the rest of her career. Having experienced firsthand the vulnerability of allowing others control over her professional destiny, she became a pioneer in artist autonomy. She maintained ownership of her publishing catalog and created business structures that ensured her independence and prevented anyone else from having that kind of control over her again. The final chapter of their complicated relationship came decades later when an elderly Waggoner, facing health and financial difficulties, reconnected with his former protégé. In a remarkable demonstration of her capacity for forgiveness, Dolly not only reconciled with him, but provided financial assistance during his final years. Dolly has revealed that she took care of Porter at the end of his life, not because she forgot the difficult parts of their history, but because she also remembered the good parts. He gave her her start, even if he tried to hold her back later. Both parts of that story are true, and she was able to honor both. This complex journey from opportunity to oppression to eventual reconciliation encapsulates Dolly's remarkable ability to navigate difficult relationships without surrendering either her boundaries or her capacity for compassion. 4. A balance that has defined much of her approach to both personal and professional relationships throughout her extraordinary career.